So the priest looks at me and says, do these people know each other? I said, no, not necessarily. He said, so you invite them for a meal? I said, or to sleep? He said, you're just inviting people? Yeah, they're Jewish people and they need a place for Shabbat. Every week is another challenge. And he looked at me and says, us Christians would never have a site like this. We don't trust each other enough.
Welcome back to another episode of Inspiration for the Nation. Now, I've been interviewing many people for the past 2 years, and I have never met someone who wears more hats than Rabbi Shmuel Klatzko. You'll hear about in this episode. I don't want to spoil too much about how many hats he wears, but just to give you a little teaser, Shabbat Com. You've probably heard of it. It's this groundbreaking website that makes tons of shidduchim and helps people find a place for Shabbos and so much more. They actually just updated their website, and he's the first on-campus kiruv rabbi, him and his wife, and his music career and just their open house policy for guests to come, and there's really truly so much. I could have spent an easy 4 extra hours with him, but I just want to tell you that this episode is in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima and Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe, and this episode is powered by, as you know, Yidflix, and also the Good Faith Effort podcast, which you're going to hear all about them very soon in this episode. Here is my conversation with Rabbi Benzion Klatzko. We can all use some inspiration to help us overcome the obstacles we encounter in our lives. Get ready for thrilling conversations about struggle and triumph with those in pursuit of making a positive impact in this world. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. So here I have Rabbi Benzion Klatzko all the way from Monsey.
From Monsey, Cleveland originally.
Originally from Cleveland. Do you still have that Cleveland accent?
I still have my heart with the Browns, but okay. No, not Cleveland, but out of towny.
Okay. Did you anticipate when you were growing up that you would stick in Cleveland, or you were like, let me get to New York?
I wasn't such a deep thinker.
Okay.
So I figured maybe Israel, and I did live in Israel for a little while. I didn't think Monsey, certainly. But, you take what life gives you, and we're really happy. Kids love Monsey. So Monsey it is for now. Okay, so
I don't write notes, but I literally wrote notes for your episode because there's so much to talk to you about. And I don't even know where to start, but and I'm not even sure, you do a million things, so I don't even know which direction, but I guess take me to maybe, I don't know when it starts, maybe after you got married and then you guys were like, we're going to be the first kiruv couple. Like, how did that come about?
So, I started off in Kollel, like any good yeshiva bacher, and I learned in Kollel for many, many years afterwards. I began teaching in the afternoon, Torah V'das, Chaim Berlin, and at that time, a position opened up in the Agudath in Borough Park. And I was asked to be the Rav at a very young age. I was 21.
Wow.
And I had the position on 14th and 45th. And I was there for about 7 years.
Hold on. When you're 21 years old, they're like, you be the Rav. Were you intimidated to do that?
Yeah. So the way it came about was there was a Rav there named Rabbi Bieberfeld. And I used to like halacha. I learned a lot of halacha, and he would give a shir in halacha. And at the end of each davening, I'd come over to him and sort of hack his shir. I'd speak about what he spoke about and the different shittas, different poskim, and he liked it. And one day he said, I'm going to be away for Shabbos. Do you mind taking over? Give the shir. I said, sure. And then he said it again. And then after the third time, he said, we've actually been looking to move out of town, and the shul likes you. Would you take over? So I said, sure. And it was a Shabbos gig, nothing very prestigious, but it was Shabbos, it was Agudath, and I was there for about 7 years. And after that time, I moved to New Jersey. There was a position that opened up in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and it was an opportunity to do a lot. It was a community that had fallen by the wayside. It had gotten elderly, and it was an opportunity to rebuild a community from scratch. So I agreed, and it was productive. Rebuilt a mikvah, built an eruv, became a moel, did different things, but that lasted until I was 30. So basically, my rabbinical career started when I was 21 and ended when I was 30. When I was 30, I had a tragedy in the family. I had a brother named Gabriel, who was 2 years younger. He was 28 years old, and he was a powerhouse, young, charismatic, dynamic, passionate, and he had become a Rav in South Africa. He moved to Johannesburg, and he opened up a shul, and the shul exploded on the scene. Today, it's one of the biggest shuls in Johannesburg. It was called the Sunny Road Synagogue, and this young, dynamic rabbi was the rabbi, and he was going to be doing this trip to Israel with a lot of his congregants, and that was on Tuesday was the trip, and Monsey Shabbos, he went to sleep, and he didn't wake up the next morning, and it rocked my world.
It was a total shock for you.
Total shock. He wasn't sick. No one saw it coming. It was one of those paralyzing phone calls that you never expect to get.
Who called you?
It was my sister, my older sister, and she was crying. And I said, "You got to calm down because you're scaring me." She said, "Something happened to Gav." I said, "What happened to Gav?" She said, "Something happened. I think he had a heart attack." I said, "He had a heart. He was 28 years old. How does a 28-year-old have a heart attack?" I said, "How is he? Where is he?" She said, I don't know. I think he's dead." And I just felt all the oxygen leave my lungs. I said, "I have to call you back." And I called up my in-between brother. I was 30. I had a brother named 29. I have a brother who's 29 named Raphael, lives in Hanover. And Gabriel was 28. We're three brothers in 3 years, known as the Three Musketeers in Cleveland. Not great kids, but we had fun making trouble, and we were really tight. And I called him up. It was like 4 a.m. in Hanover, and he picks up right away, and he just weeps into the phone. So I knew that Musketeer number 3 had fallen. Oh, yeah. So we flew to Israel the next day for the Levaya, and the Levaya was a incredibly touching, unexpected Levaya, because you'd expect family, some friends, and thousands of people. And it made no sense. Like, how does everyone know my bro? It didn't make sense. And then throughout the Shiva, the Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Sternbach, the Kozabag Rebbe, people drove hours to pay their respects. And eventually it came out that Gabriel had been living this double life. And to us, he was good old Gav, beautiful voice, charismatic, in style, cool. And quietly, he had been living a life of tremendous chesed. Today, there are hundreds of kids named after my brother. Art Scrolls got a whole thing about my brother. He was the original Rav Gav, actually.
You know what? I shot an episode, my first episode ever for Meaningful People was with originally Rav Gav. This is going back to 2019.
Wow.
And when I asked him his name, where to come from, and he's like, actually, I'm not the original Rav Gav.
Right.
And he mentioned your brother.
Right.
That episode, whatever, it was just all over the place. It never ended up airing. But I remember that, and wow. He's the first Rav Gav.
Yeah, so my brother was the Rav Gav. He was in Art Scroll, in one of the Brzezinski books, they've got a chapter with a bunch of stories about him, and the name of the chapter is they called him Rav Gav. And actually, Rabbi Gabriel Friedman came over to me and the family, and as people began calling him Rav Gav, he came over and he said, "Is it okay? I know your brother." And I have to tell you, I never said this on air, but I'm glad he did, because it would have hurt.
Really?
It really would have.
It's very honest of you to.
It was very honest. It was hard, because my brother had cut down before his prime, and his identity had become Rav Gav. Now there was this new Rav Gav. So when he came over to me and said, "Is that okay?" I was very grateful, and we're very close. Rav Gav and I. He speaks on my trips, and I speak with him, and yeah.
Wow. Okay, so after your brother passed away, where did that lead you to go next?
So at that point, I just decided I got to do more with my life. And being a rabbi in New Jersey,
it's funny. You're like a Rav, and you're like, I got to do more.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll see as as you hear me, I'm sort of I live with an urgency. I think because when someone's brother passes away young, and you say to yourself, and who signed on the dotted line that I've got 70, 80, 90 years. Like he also thought he did. And so I live with an urgency, like there's more to be done, and it could be done, and we got to do it. So that was my mindset, and I dropped out of the rabbinate, and a few opportunities came up. I checked out a few of them. Each one was exciting in its own way. And eventually I ended up going to UCLA to do kiruv. And I'll tell you, people know me as a kiruv guy. When I went to my dad and I said, I'm going to go and do kiruv, his first words were like, really? I didn't take you as a kiruv guy. His first words, like, I'll show you, I can do kiruv. But I had 6 kids at the time. And we moved to UCLA on Fraternity Row with 6 little kinderlach.
Well, and was that happening at that point?
No, there was no on-campus, living on-campus kiruv. There was one on-campus program that had started at that time, Rabbi Jacobowitz in Michigan, but nobody was living on the campus. So my wife and I didn't really have footsteps to follow moving onto a campus with a from yeshivish family. It was bizarre. I didn't go to college. I mean, I have a few smichas, but it was all very new to me, and people are surprised.
Were you scared for even like your kids, like the atmosphere maybe wouldn't be the right place for them? I don't know how old or young they were.
I mean, they were. I think they were 11 and 12 were the oldest then. I was probably too naive to be scared. I was just like, let's do this, But even today, I'm not really scared because the chinuch is in the home. The home is the place of chinuch, and very often you'll find children of people who do kiruv. The children are very solid and very healthy because the contrast is a lot clearer than it may be, for example, in Monsey, where everyone is from. So when people struggle, it's hard to know that that's called struggling.
Right. They look the part, so it's hard to really know if they're going through something.
Exactly.
So were there any? I don't know. What was it like being the first couple in UCLA, or just first kiruv couple on campus?
Okay. So the first day I got to campus, and I did not know what was flying. And I was standing on this walkway called Bruin Walk, and people are walking back and forth, and I was told the job was to find Jews. Like, what do you racially profile? What are we looking for? Dark curly hair and big noses? Like, what am I looking for? And it's embarrassing to stop people. And then somebody told me something, and I've repeated this many times, and I get the credit for it, but it's I did not invent this idea. Someone gave it to me, and I just live with it, which is that when I'm standing on this walkway, and Jews are walking back and forth, and it's embarrassing to say, hey, are you Jewish? You got to look at it like you're standing on a train platform, and people are walking into cattle cars, and they're on their way to Auschwitz. I know that's heavy.
It's very heavy.
But if you let them go, then you're not going to see them again. That's it. And you wouldn't say, well, look, I'm sort of shy to pull them off the cattle car, a little bit embarrassed. So in a spiritual way, and really in a physical way also, numbers-wise, our nation is being decimated by apathy and intermarriage and assimilation. The numbers scream what bad shape we are in. So I'm going to be embarrassed to ask someone if they're Jewish. Embarrassment doesn't come into play. It's like the pasuk says, "In chachma ve'in eitza ve'in tfuna neged Hashem." Right? We can't be ibra chachamim. right? We're in front of Hashem. We got to do our thing. And I just began stopping people. Hey, are you Jewish? And I got into it, and I love doing it. And till this day, a big part of my year is I go onto campuses and I train rabbis how to stop Jews and find them and, reel them in and hug them up if it's a guy and start learning with them and inspire them.
So you just mentioned that you train other people into be a rabbi or care of master. Right. Is there like a secret sauce to doing it? Is there like 100 steps and then you master it? What is it like?
So it's like anything. There's methodology. I work for an organization known as Olami.
Of course.
And great organizations, Juravel all over the world. And they hire really wonderful, sincere, talented people, but until you learn the methodology, you just have the raw skill, the raw talent. So the very first thing to know is so there's no tricks. It's not a horse and pony show. You gotta love people. It starts and ends and everything in between is love. Mm-hmm. And as they're walking by, if you don't really, really, really care about them, which means whether or not they become from, whether or not they are friendly to you or they give you a cold shoulder, if you don't love them, you can't do kiruv. You got to love them. And then you have to ask yourself the golden question in all success. And that question, the magic question is, what's the worst that could happen? You just got to ask yourself. So if I stop somebody and they give me the cold shoulder, okay, I can live with that. They say I'm not interested, hurts, but I can live with that. Most things in life that we succeed in, we have to be bold and brave, and we have to ask ourselves, so what's the worst that could happen? I'll tell you a funny story. Years ago when I lived in LA, so the Siyum HaShas was taking place in the Disney Theater. So just like in New York, it takes place in different Coliseum stadiums. So Disney Theater has room for 5,000 people. And it was completely full. And they had made the Siyum, and on the big screen, it was showing Siyum from around the world. And everyone had just made the Hadron, and people began to dance in New York and in other places. But in LA, everyone was just sitting in their seats watching New York dance. And I was thinking, come on, guys, this is Siyum HaShas. Then I said to myself, what would happen if I just went onto the stage and just began to dance in front of 5,000 people? Would everyone start dancing? Or would I just look very funny? And I said, what's the worst that can happen? I'm just going to dance on stage. And I went, and thank God one other person had the same idea. So we just started dancing. And for 25 painful seconds, it was just us two on the Disney stage with 5,000 people staring at us. And then another person got up, then another person. Soon the whole place was dancing. So you just got to say, what's the worst that could happen? And that's the secret sauce. Love them. Don't worry about your covered. Understand that you're going to stop somebody, and that person may end up building an entire family in Klal Yisrael with 10 kids and 100 grandkids. You don't know, and it's worth it being a little bit embarrassed or taking that risk.
Just dance.
Just dance.
We'll be right back to this week's episode, but first, let me tell you about my good friends at the podcast, The Good Faith Effort. Now, the Bible has played a pretty important role in American society from the founding era until today, from our politics to our pop culture. But have you ever wondered exactly how? Well, that's where the Good Faith Effort podcast comes in. Yes, hosted by historian, rabbi, and pop culture aficionado Ari Lamm, Good Faith Effort brings on incredible new guests each week from the worlds of politics, history, music, movies, faith, and even venture capital to host the kind of conversations you literally will not hear anywhere else. And just a side point, I bumped into Ari Lamm this past Pesach, and I saw him in a hotel, and I'm like, I think I know you from the podcast Twitter world. He's like, I think I know you. And he was running to, lunch, and I was running to actually interview Sol Blinkoff. What a good man. And since then, we've been in touch. But back to the good faith effort. You want to hear a story, or maybe one of the world's leading tech investors explain how the prophet Yeshayahu informs her work with startup founders, or how about a former reporter for ESPN reflect on the Bible's lessons for having normal political opinions in a world gone crazy. Well, all I can say is subscribe to Good Faith Effort on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts, and listen in to the inspirational, fun, crazy conversations about the Bible's surprising roles in Western society you won't hear anywhere else. I personally love this podcast. I listened to every single episode. It's diverse. It's different. It's nothing that you get to hear on this show. It's a very different show, but it's really done well. And Rabbi is a great host, and they bring on very unique guests, and it really makes you think. So go ahead and check them out. Well, I'm curious. What's the worst that actually did happen to you? Because you probably have a lot of experiences, and I want someone listening to be like, well, if he did it with, thousands of people, and that's the worst, then okay. Unless it's like super traumatizing. No,
the truth is, nothing bad really happens. I mean, people give me a dirty look.
Mm-hmm. There's no story. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no one ever threw an egg at me.
Right.
I try to be charming and sweet, and I don't scream, "Hey, you Jewish!" I'm not aggressive.
Right.
I'm the opposite to you. See, I have a soft voice, and I just say, "Hey, are you Jewish?" I stop them with enough. There's an art to it, so they have to be like 12 feet in front of you. If you stop them as they're passing you, then by the time you get the question out, they've walked past. So you can't ask too early, because they can't hear you. You can't ask too late. So it's like a 12-foot, you just got to get within their eye range. There's some chachma to it.
I have a question now, because I don't know how prevalent, I don't know if you're still going on campuses. Or
I am, yeah.
You still are?
Sure.
Okay, so something that I think has shifted since the start till now is, unfortunately, there's a lot of hate, a lot more anti-Semitism going on, and especially, I just see with any, our own YouTube channel, or whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, you post a nice, beautiful video about someone connecting to God, and then there's people be like, Palestine this, and then hate. I'm like, well, what the heck is going on over here? We're just trying to make nice content, and just they're screaming that you Jews, what are you doing?
Right.
How do you combat that on campus?
This is good. I don't know how this is going to come out, but I try to be loving to everyone. Mm-hmm. When we lived on campus, our house was next door to the Palestinian house, literally next door. And when we first moved in, we made a barbecue, and the Palestinians tried to sabotage our barbecue in a weird way. Actually, they began stripping on the other side of this very see-through gated fence. So to me, they were just being ridiculous, but they clearly wanted us not there. However, a number of weeks later, I had ordered a painting. I collect art, and I ordered this painting of the Kosel. And when it arrived at my house, we saw that in the painting, the dome was really looming. It was just too big. It was as big as the Kosel. And I didn't like it. My wife didn't like it. And we decided, I'm not going to hang it. It's just too prevalent. So we had paid for it, and we framed it. It was beautiful. So I knocked on my Palestinians' door, my next door neighbor. I said, guys, I bought you a present. We've got the rock there. And they became good buddies. They used to say, Rabbi, you need a ride somewhere? And they'd give me rides. And so, you can be a fighter or a lover. And, sometimes people are just going to fight, and there's not much you can do about it. That's the truth. But in general, if you come off as somebody who's approachable, people who are compromised are compromised. But thank God, very, very few incidences of hatred.
That's beautiful. Okay, again, it's this idea of just be loving, and it'll work out. Okay, I have 17 topics to get through with you, so I want to bring up Shabbat.com.
Okay.
How did it start, and explain it to people of what it was and what it has become.
Sure. Shabbat Com was a tremendous bracha. I remember when it popped into my head. I'll give you the origin story. I had thought of the idea of inviting But my family and I, we invite a lot of people for Shabbos. We love guests. We both come from large families.
How many average?
And we'll do 60, 70, 80 guests each week.
What?
Yeah.
To your house?
To our house. And they eat and they sleep over, and it's...
I mean, just we have a sister podcast, Kosher Money. Just the Shabbos food alone is...
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Very
expensive. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Hold on, we'll get back to Shabbat.com. Where's the I guess taiva to have so many people?
I gotta go back to love again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I want authentic answers. That's answered everything.
We just feel that we have a warm family, and what we have to offer in terms of accepting people, very accepting, very colorblind, black hat, no hat, yes yarmulke, no yarmulke, believes in Hashem, struggling with we've had OTD Shabbatonim where they avoid everyone, but they come to our house. Footsteps came to my house for Shabbos.
Really?
Like we're just known to be people who love people, and a lot of people have found their way back to Yiddishkeit, not through wagging fingers or giving mussar, but just to see that, you know what, you can give Hashem another chance, even if you feel like Hashem wasn't there for you when things were difficult, even when things were sad. Hashem loves you tremendously, and you just need to be in an environment that's healthy, and people are looking for shidduchim. So we do a lot of shidduchim, and people find each other at our house. We keep it, of course, very kosher.
You're making me want to go. Can I come for a Shabbos meal?
Of course.
I imagine you're like, no, you can't. Actually, it's only for a certain type.
No.
I didn't think that.
It's everyone. That's
beautiful. Okay, so back to Shabbat.com.
Okay.
So the origin story.
So the origin is, I thought, what happens, like I get invited to speak to different hotels, different events. What happens if I get invited to speak? What happens to all those guests? And I have people who say to me, Rabbi, you have so many guests. Why can't you give us some of your guests? And I used to think, find your own guests. I find my guests. And then I realized that people just don't know how to find guests. And each week there are so many people who need places. I mean, think about it. If somebody is single and they're in the Upper West Side, and you know they've been looking for their shidduch, and they're 31 years old, and they're lonely, and every Shabbos they're going to the same place, and they feel like they're imposing. Eventually, they start breaking Shabbos. That's really what's been happening. Or people who are Baalei Tshuva, but they don't have any support. Just on and on. COVID. People, there are almanas out there. Divorcees, they don't have let's say a husband or a father in the picture to give their kids a fun Lebedik Shabbos. The need is really, really big. So I thought, let's create an online platform where people can find places for Shabbos. So that was the original idea. I'll put this on like 4x speed. Eventually, it was called See You on Shabbos originally. Eventually, we got the name Shabbat.com, which was very fortunate.
What year is this?
This is 2010.
Wow.
We went live the end of 2010. We added dating a year later because there were so many singles. We thought, let's have them meet each other. We don't charge. A lot of dating sites charge, and it's very difficult because all these singles are on multiple sites, and they're being charged hundreds of dollars, and they're not finding their soulmates. So let's do it for free. And then eventually I realized that not just having a database of places to go and people looking for shidduchim, but it's got to be a social network. This way people will keep coming back to the site. Otherwise, they'll just sign up, hey, I want to be a host, but then they'll never go back on the site to check if the people need a place. We need a reason for them to come back. So we created a feed, just like any social network. And then once you create a feed, you have to have likes, and you have to have comments, and then we have to have ways of uploading media and video. And then everyone had a profile page. And soon, we didn't aim to look like Facebook or Instagram, but the way they did it just ended up being the smartest way. They have smart people working for them. And it got larger and larger, and eventually today it's in 212 countries.
Wow.
All over the world. Wherever you go, you can find a place for Shabbos. It's a website and an app. It won the Israel Award in 2016.
What's that?
The Israel Award is the technology to connect Jewish people. There were 80 organizations. We didn't even apply. They found us, and it ended up boiling down to two organizations, us and an organization called Mosh House, and then we won. And we won $1 million shekel from from the government, and we spread all over, and then we kept on growing. A few of my kids found their shidduchim on the site.
Really?
Yeah, we were doing before COVID. We were doing 6 shidduchim a month. I mean, 6 people were getting engaged a month. We just have. I'll show you afterwards a new couple 2 days ago found themselves on the site.
Shachanim listening to this episode are getting nervous.
Oh, it's a no-brainer. Why should we have to? You know, I'm a shadchan. I know how it works. People come, they have an interview by you, and then they give you a paper, and it goes into a file, and then every 4 months they send you a follow-up email. Oh, I just revised my shidduch resume. But really what they're saying is, don't forget about me. I exist, that I'm getting older, and no one's calling me. There's even a functionality on the site that there's no site in the world that has. It's called Matchmaker, where anyone can go on the site, compile every eligible guy on the site on the left side of the page, every girl on the right side, and then drag and drop any 2 profiles and click make a match, and it'll send over the profile of the guy to the girl to the guy, with you as the matchmaker.
That's brilliant. Hold on. So who are the users for Shabbat.com? Because when I was dating, I don't think I used it. But would someone like me be able to use it?
Sure.
Or is it? So it's all.
So the site is about 50% religious, 50% not religious, which is I think a very good rate. We want everyone to keep Shabbos, but if you're looking for a demographic that could use the functionality, so you don't want to have just religious people on, because you want to be able to reach the college student and the people who are who want to discover Judaism. A lot of people in their journey to conversion use Shabbat.com because that's how they experience Shabbos. Then again, we want from people on, for shidduchim certainly, and to be hosts. So it's split up really evenly. We have a lot of Hasidim on. We have a lot of Lakewood on. Like, people think, oh, it's not for me. It is for you. It is. We have endorsements by all of the big Gedolim when we started. Like, everyone, Baruch Hashem, they liked what we were doing. I would even say we were literally one of the first websites to get Haskamas, because they weren't giving for many years. They wouldn't give anything that was online. Now today they do, but Shabbat Com was one of the first. And you can go on YouTube and you'll find Haskamas for Rabbi David Feinstein and Rav Belsky and Rabbi Yitzchak David Grossman and you name it, Rabbi Wallerstein. They all loved what we were doing, and it's just a beautiful way. Little anecdotal. I'm sitting on the plane and I'm doing some admin work on Shabbat.com, and next to me is a priest.
On Shabbat.com, not on Shabbos. Okay.
Not on Shabbos.
Yeah. You're like on Shabbat. I'm like, .com. I'm like,
Yeah, no, just right. People say, oh, Shabbat.com can't be used on Shabbat. Wow, that's and there's a priest that's sitting next to me, and he's like looking over my shoulder, like, what is, it looks like Facebook, but it's not. I said, it's a Jewish site where people can get invitations for Shabbat. So the priest looks at me and says, do these people know each other? I said, no, not necessarily. He said, so you invite them for a meal? I said, or to sleep? He said, you're just inviting people? Yeah, they're Jewish people and they need a place for Shabbat. Every week is another challenge. And he looked at me and says, us Christians would never have a site like this. We don't trust each other enough. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like,
interesting.
The Agudath is beautiful.
Wow. And it makes sense. I saw someone, the CEO of WhatsApp got involved.
So the founder of WhatsApp found out about what we were doing.
Is he a Jewish guy?
He is a Jewish guy.
Okay.
And he flew into Monsey we met each other.
Really?
He spent an hour and a half going through the site. He was blown away. He said, "Did the Jewish community know what you built?" I said, "I don't think so. I think they probably think we're like an information website, where like one of these blogs, WordPress sites. This is all original code from start to finish. We own the code, and we spent millions of dollars to build it over 10 years. I've been fundraising forever for it." He loved it. He nitpicked it, like, he's on the board of Facebook. He knows what he's doing.
Right.
He didn't like this icon here and the flow of that workflow over there. But he liked it enough to say, "You know what? I'll make you a deal. I love what you're doing." He liked that we were altruistic. We don't charge. He liked that WhatsApp was meant as an altruistic platform. And he said, "You know what? I'm going to help you guys out, but I want you to start from scratch. I want you to rebuild the whole thing in 2022 technology." So we agreed.
What year did this conversation take place?
This took place in 2019.
Okay, so like a little before COVID.
Literally that.
Wow. Did you at that point tell him, like, "Hi, do you know what WhatsApp status is? The Orthodox community love WhatsApp status."
I didn't say that. I didn't say it. I probably should have.
Yeah. Well, we pound it.
He was such an impressive person. I mean, I found out afterwards to get a meeting with him is worth $1 million just itself, the founder of WhatsApp.
So he said to build it from scratch.
From scratch. He wanted to build a certain way.
And what do you get in return?
I get the most up-to-date website and all.
Oh, he's going to provide.
He's providing. Yeah, he's going to provide the funding.
Wow.
Or the seed funding.
Wow.
And
it's going to be an incredible site.
And it's going to be a very incredible site.
Wait, so when did it?
So we rebuilt everything: the app, the website. Our team blew up from basically me and a wizard programmer and a few design people freelancing to we have 18 people. We have so many programmers and UI people and QA people and you name it. It's a very, very big project. And what we want to give the Jewish people is literally a way to connect in a way that doesn't exist, not just in Judaism, but in any demographic in the world. And we have the eyes of this founder of WhatsApp that 4 times a year we send in our progress report and they look it over and they see it and it's exciting. And the new version after we started building should be live in a few weeks. It really is live. That's the truth.
It might be, I'm not sure when this is going to air. So chances are this is going to air once it's fully ready to go.
Yeah, sometime over the summer.
Wow.
And we're going to be blowing it up, and our initial goal is to get 500,000 Jews on the site. And when that happens, everything changes. What changes? Well, I'm in Texas. I want to pull out the people in Austin who are Jewish. And the only thing they heard of is they bumped into Shabbat.com on an Instagram ad, and they saw it's cool because it's a way to date a Jew. And now you can invite them for Shabbos, and now you can create a connection. There's an internal Twitter. We have it's built in where we can make everyone's phone buzz on the entire site. Or in any place. So let's say, God forbid, there's a terrorist attack in France. I could set off all the phones in France simultaneously. Avoid this street. There's an anti-Semitic incident going on. Hurricane Sandy. We can alert everyone. We need a place, and we can mobilize Jewish people.
Literally next level. Literally next level. Wow. I hope this interview gets embedded onto the site so people could see this.
Yeah. We'll blast it out there.
Wow, that's incredible. We'll be right back to this week's episode, but first I need to tell you about Yidflix. Yes, the kosher content king of content. I said content a lot of times, but you got to check them out. If you haven't yet, go to their website, see all of their fun, good, kosher stuff for your kids, for your tweens, for you. And yes, you can find Living Lchaim videos there and check it out. It's in a safe space and it's great. It's not expensive and it's expansive for your mind. I don't know. I'm not good with catchphrases sometimes. It's definitely on the spot. Now back to this week's episode. So I saw on Wikipedia, your Wikipedia. Not many people have Wikipedia, but someone set one up for you. You referred to as the Hollywood rabbi. So we spoke over the phone. There's a lot of religious people listening to this. There's people who aren't Jewish going to be watching and listening to this episode, and people who are not religious. So it's all sides of the spectrum. But could you tell me a little about that and I guess your role with Netflix and how that came about?
Sure. So when I lived in LA, I ended up bumping into a number of people who were prominent in Hollywood, and they felt comfortable with me, and they asked if I would give a class to them. And I began a class. It was called the Hollywood class. It was the first Wednesday of every month, and more people began joining the class. We had the VP of Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney. We had people, the writers of Friends, Third Rock from the Sun, Malcolm in the Middle, movie producers, and it was something really unique because it allowed me to be a little bit of a moral compass for them for what they produced. And I can't say like it changed the movies, but I think I was a rabbi that they were comfortable with, and I ended up having a say in their life, in their families, and I was still very close to them. I'll give you a funny example. There was an actor named Christoph Waltz, and he's a very well-known actor. He was in The Django Unchained and Inglorious. He's like he won multiple.
He's a great actor.
Great actor, and I ended up setting up his daughter, and I was the shadchan for his daughter. And
you're the shadchan
for his daughter.
Hey, isn't his daughter living there as well?
Yeah,
aren't they
Isaac Keller.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is he Jewish himself?
No,
but his wife is.
But I have myself dancing with him to have an agila at the wedding.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we could get some footage and put it on this thing.
I don't know if you can find it.
Oh, you don't have.
I don't see
Were you doing the waltz with? Okay, sorry.
I don't know. He's also shorter than you.
Oh, really?
So short. He's like my height.
Interesting.
He's a short guy. Yeah. And we had Netflix by us a few weeks ago. There was this Netflix show that had come out that was it was trying to be very damaging to the Jewish community. I don't want to get into it, but it was a show where somebody who had been in Monsey and was really bad mouthing the Jewish community, and I knew it wasn't true because I know her. She was my sister's best friend. She was at my wedding, and what was being promoted on the show was blatantly false. It's Hollywood. But
right.
People don't realize Hollywood is Hollywood, and reality TV is not. It's a
it's far from reality.
Of reality. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this opportunity came up to show the beauty of Judaism. So there's a new show coming out called The Jewish Matchmaker, and the matchmaker is a very close friend.
When's the show coming out?
It's coming out in a few months.
Are you even allowed to say this?
Yeah, but I don't think I'm allowed to say who the matchmaker is.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's
well
known or not. And one of the stars of the show is a student of mine who I helped be Makarev years ago. So
really?
Yeah. So we did an episode at our house on Purim. And I figured, and but it's a real episode. I was legitimately drunk on Patron, and I think they're probably gonna have a montage of me reaching for the tequila.
Oh, you weren't nervous to be drunk and then gonna be on Netflix?
I'm me. I don't know.
You're doing your Purim.
I'm doing my Purim. It's gotta be Purim. And actually, I'm friendly with the senator in New York, Senator Melnick. So I told the senator, he calls me a lot. So I said to him, you know what? Why don't you come to my house? I'll get you some serious press. You'll be on a Netflix show. So he came. So he was going to be on the Netflix show, and we're dancing and getting him to drink. And it was a fun time, and it's showing the love of the community. And my goal, my passion, is to show how awesome Jews are. And even when this show came out with Netflix, I began interviewing other people and putting it online, and just showing, stop bad-mouthing this amazing, compassionate, thoughtful, wonderful community. You want to find black marks, you can find them anywhere, in anyone. And I think people realize it, but still, if it even does a little bit of damage, we have to mitigate that.
That's really beautiful. Okay, so went through a few things you've done, but there's multiple organizations or websites that you've started. So take me through the list.
Okay. Well, we'll give you a partial list. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know how much time we have, but there's an organization called Chazkenu, and there's two ladies that called me up, and they spoke about this issue, postpartum depression and mental illness, and it's a stigma in the community. And my passion is to help people allow projects to become a reality, and anything that I can do, I'll do, and whether it's to help them with the connections or sometimes funding. So I love the idea, and I gave them the encouragement, and I built them a website, bought the domain name, and I paid for the first Shabbat Com, and we got it started, and I still speak for them from time to time. And if you go on the Chazkenu website, you'll see it says a project of Shabbat.com. And today Chazkenu is a very big organization, and that's a great example of being able to start something and allowing it to grow wings and to fly, because if I babysit every project, I'll never be able to move on.
Right.
So, but some projects I still do have to babysit. So, one of the projects is called Hashem.com. It was a thought I had that there's no link that we could send somebody who has questions about whether Hashem exists. A basic yadus, like I want to know, how do I know? And I get these kind of questions multiple times every day.
Right.
One of the things I try to do is I'm very open with my phone number. I know there are some people who feel like don't give it out there, but I give it out there. That's why God created WhatsApp. Plug for WhatsApp.
You would, yeah, he's going to be watching.
I'll give my number. It's 212 Shabbat.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a really easy number to remember.
Easy.
I feel that's what rabbis are there for. We have to be there for people. And if I can't get back to the person right then, I go through my WhatsApp every night.
Actually, there are a lot of guests I try to reach. It takes me sometimes months. You is literally, I'm like, I'll message him. Maybe he's a busy guy. And within the hour, you messaged me back. I was very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a sort of a shita of mine. Don't make people wait. Just be there for people. So I get questions. How do I know God exists?
Right.
And I thought, wouldn't it be great to create a site, but not with the talking head, not lectures, but to find either clips or create clips and show either Niflo Sabore or things that are a little deeper, the implication of quantum theory, which is more complex, the human body, and just put it out there in a beautiful way that parents can show their children. And underneath each video, a write-up explaining how this reconciles with design versus the problems if this was a product of random chaos. So that's Hashem.com. We just put up a new video this week about a chicken and egg and what it takes, and we don't hammer the listener over the head saying, you see, there must be Hashem. We just allow the viewer to come to their own conclusion. So that's Hashem.com. It's very popular.
Did you buy that domain?
So we
that's got Hashem.com.
We got a lot of great domain names. Baruch Hashem. A very interesting story. I'll tell 20 seconds.
We love stories here.
You love stories. Okay,
yeah.
This is a great story. The person who owned a lot of these domain names is a person who actually owns websites that are really unsavory. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, got it.
And he's known in the industry as unsavory websites. So why is he owning Hashem.com?
Right, the last person.
And he had some other ones. He said, look, I understood when the internet began, when websites were selling, that he said, I'm not a religious Jew. I'm Jewish, I'm not religious, but I knew that a domain name like Hashem, if I don't grab it quickly, then some Christian's going to grab it. And then every time you put in Google the word Hashem, you're going to end up with a Christian site, and it's going to lead people astray. He said, I'm no saint, but I did not want people leaving the Christianity. So he had these domain names, and I ended up getting from him all sorts of great names. Havdalah.com also came from him. And
you know something Havdalah.com?
Yeah.
What's Havdalah.com?
So Havdalah.com, we would live stream our Havdalahs each week.
Wow.
it ended up becoming a major thing. Our live stream Havdalah weekly is the most popular live stream Havdalah in the world. It's very well known. We do it every week. Our family's musical, and each of the kids play an instrument.
It's a live stream of your personal Havdalah?
Of our personal Havdalah.
Wow.
Like the kids, they take out their instruments, and we have singers. We've had many singers come to jam with my kids. So we had a few weeks ago, Nissim Black came, and Gad Elbaz came, and Barry Weber came, and we just spoke with Shwekey's guy, and we're going to do a project with him called Be Heard, and we have this musical thing going on in our house because, thank God, our kids are very gifted. So every week we live stream it. So we used to live stream it on Havdalah.com. It turns out Facebook, a number of years ago, began their own live stream on the status update, and it was free. And we were paying a few $1,000s a year. And it was also effective because it would notify people. And
are you on TikTok yet?
So we're not on TikTok. This is my foginess. Like, I need to get on.
You need to get on. I'm telling you.
I need to get
amount
on.
of reach that, at least that I've seen, like Facebook was great, Instagram was great, but TikTok, if you're creating good content that people want, they really push it. And like what you're saying now with Havdalah, I think a lot of people would totally live stream that.
We're gonna. I just have to, when you get to a certain age and there's new technology,
right,
there's a mental roadblock. And
you don't need to make excuses because you're literally building like Shabbat.com into like this new age futuristic type of website. And I'm like here telling you that TikTok, you're busy. But you mentioned, and we could get back to other projects, but you mentioned the music. Like I saw online, you put out a lot of music.
Yeah. Thank God. This has actually given me a tremendous amount of nachas. I don't know how to put it. It's just when I was young, I used to compose, and one or two of my songs, they made the rounds in the yeshivas. Like they made the rounds, and I went to Staten Island Yeshiva. Mir Yeshiva began singing, and I was very passionate. Like, wow, I could compose a song, and I ended up singing in front of Moshe Feinstein. I was brought to sing a song called Adir that was a very moving song.
What was that like? Hold on, let me pause you there. What was that like for singing for Moshe Feinstein?
It was surreal. Reb Moshe, Reb Reuven, and Reb David were all there, and they said to sing, and then they asked for another song, and it was beautiful. Wow. And I always wanted to get my music out there, and at a certain point, I said, okay, I'm making an album with my compositions. I know I don't have a great voice, but I could sing a little, not like this, but I could sing, and I started making an album without me singing, but I put on A.B. Rottenberg was on it, who was like a legend, and Mendy Williger was on it, and Moshe Mendelowitz was on it, and the album was about 70% done. And then the story of my brother took place. My brother was nifter, and I went into Kiruv, and I became so focused on Kiruv, I dropped the album with all the songs recorded, but they hadn't been mixed, and they would need more. And I just. And I felt bad. And then eventually it was antiquated because it was done in analog instead of digital. So in 2016, I ended up making an album with my songs with this young guy that I had met in Yeshiva. His name was Penny Schachter. And he's somewhat of a name in the Jewish world in singing. His beautiful, beautiful voice. And some of the songs went somewhat viral. The most viral song was called the Chuppah Song, which is played all over the world. It's got a lot of views on YouTube. Another song called Manishtana. And that was 2016. Then COVID hit, and we were stuck in the house. And I had a song called Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. It was the Zmiris that we sing Motzei Shabbos. And I had each of the kids sing a line. It was a very beautiful song. I had it beautifully arranged. And it was spread all over. And I think one of the reasons it spread was this is at the beginning of COVID. A lot of people were dying, and people were scared. And it wasn't just a beautiful song, but the words, don't be scared, Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. When a little kid singing that, it was so pure. So people were sharing it on YouTube, but also on WhatsApp, and it made the rounds. And I thought, wow, this wasn't so difficult to do. And there was a fellow who was a music arranger named Yisrael Ament, who was a regular guest of mine. I did not know how talented he was. And he was stuck in my house during COVID. He got COVID, we got COVID. So I had him at my disposal for 6 weeks. So I said, let's get out another song. And we've been putting out music ever since.
What's the goal? Is it an outlet for you, or is this a form of cure for you?
It's to be incredibly touching. I mean, some of the music is more mundane. It was just regular, nice Jewish music. But some of the songs, like our song after Meron, was the song that people were singing all over the world. It was an Al Eila, and an hour after we put out Pesach Kron, Rabbi Pesach Kron called me crying that he had heard it. Our song Nechat Te'enu is played in every camp. It's like a cartoon of what happened during Churban Bayis with our family singing. We had a song called The Song of the Four Sons, where we went through the Arba Banim, but differently than you may have expected. So the wise son is wise, but he's also insecure because he feels he has to be on this pedestal. And the wicked son is just a teen at risk, and he needs confidence. And the simple son just has ADHD. And the one that doesn't want to ask, he can't ask because he has anxiety. And it's just the most beautiful song. And it was shared by Avi Fishoff and Mechanchim. So the goal is not to be famous. We were asked to sing in concerts, my kids, and that's not our goal. Our goal is to get beautiful music out there that will touch people.
That's really beautiful. So. Yeah. I'm sure there are more projects. Are there any other projects or website domain names that you want to mention before I move on to the art gallery stuff?
Sure. Well, one project is called, if you put in Purple Jacket People.
Purple Jacket
People.
Okay,
it's
very specific.
Purple Jacket
Easier
People.
domain than Hashem.com to
Yeah,
get.
Purple Jacket People is a concept I came up with a number of years ago to explain what does it mean to be Jewish. And it's a concept that actually is taught all over the world today. It even made it in Wikipedia, so which is wild. It was a mushal I thought of, and it was put in art scroll. And the idea is, how are the Jewish people changing the world? You could also put in the words, illuminate the world. It'll take you to the same site, illuminatetheworld.com. And what I do is I collate every time somebody who is Torahdic, someone who's religious, it does something to make the world a better place. I gather that article or write-up, and I post it so you now can go on and you can see many, many articles of how from people have gone out of their way to make the world at large, not just the religious world, but the world at large, a better place. So illuminate the world. Will be a light unto the nations. So that's my goal. Again, it's a positive PR. One of my big projects called Akiva Trip. Akiva Trip is a trip where I take 30 to 40 students and I bring them to Israel.
Where's the name come from?
It comes from Rabbi Akiva.
Okay.
It's an interesting kind of Kiruv trip because I'm very blunt about the agenda. I'm there to inspire you so that you take the next step in your Judaism. And it's a wildly popular trip. As a matter of fact, you mentioned TikTok. Tomorrow we're interviewing a young lady who just signed up for the trip. She is one of the most popular TikTokers on the entire TikTok. She has 2.1 million followers on TikTok. She's like wildly popular, and she may be on my trip this trip.
I hope she takes videos on the trip.
I'm sure she will.
Okay.
We have another actress on the trip this time, a very high-level student, and we get musicians to come on the trip, and we just inspire them. That's called the Akiva Trip, and we can have hundreds and hundreds of applicants for 30 slots. This time we have 40 slots. We're full, but whenever there's a star, I'm always going to find room for them. And we're going again in August, and it's my passion to bring people, let them go through the Rabbi Akiva journey and the Rachel Eish's Rabbi Akiva journey. So we visit her, and then we visit him. We go to Tiberia, we tell them the story, and we're all on a Rabbi Akiva journey. So
how do you, I mean, we could get back to more projects and then get to the gallery, but you wear so many different type of hats, and sometimes when someone says that mashal, it's like you wear different hats. They're still wearing a baseball cap. They may be wearing a Yankee cap and then a Giants cap, but you're wearing like a Yankee cap, a cowboy hat, a yarmulke, like the most diverse.
Don't forget the Browns. No,
like no, they're all hats, so they're all under this like idea of like helping Jews, but. It's very talking about the Kiva project, and then talking about your music, and then talking about the Kiruv, and then talking about Shabbat.com. Like it's all like, how do you like halt cup? How do you excel at with all of them?
Well, I don't excel all of them. Sometimes
I'm sure you've had failures, but these all seem the ones you've mentioned seem really great.
I don't know. I don't think I was that organized growing up, and maybe being a little bit less organized helps for this.
Okay.
As much as it sounds like it hurts, but it actually helps because there's a lot of balls that I'm juggling. Actually, we have a new ball. I just throw it out there because I told the person that I'm helping start it that we'd mention this. We have a new project called Siyum Yomi, which is starting in a week, where everyone in Klal Yisrael will take one Mishnah and we'll make a Siyum every night. Wow. And we're going to do it.
Do you own CMYomi.com?
Yeah. The name was my name.
Wow.
And it's just a way to unify Klal Yisrael.
Okay, but you're answering my question by giving me more projects you've been working on.
Yeah. I think that if we live life with urgency and we really love people, so we're always going to have time for people. Being creative makes us feel alive. I think when people say, I'm bored, like my kids can't say I'm bored. Like I'll give them plenty to do. There's a lot to do. I will tell you, for every one of these projects that I'm involved with and I'm passionate about, there are many more that I wish I could do. And the ideas are clear. Like if someone came to me, they said, Rabbi, here's $100,000. What's next? Simple, we need a bigger Cholim map, right? No one was able to visit anyone because no one knew who was sick during COVID, and there were people who never visited. We need an app where someone could say, "My mom is in Florida, and here's where she is. Here are the hours, and if you could pick up milk, that's part of the big Cholim." Simple idea. There are so many things that are needed to be done. I just think that people think all the good ideas are gone. They just think like all the good ideas are finished, but they're not. So when we get passionate about an idea, then, we go for it. We figure out a way to do it. If there's a partner, like make sure to keep the partner involved so that it doesn't all fall on your shoulders, and then you move on. And
that's really incredible. So I want to get to your art gallery. What you mentioned before, like it's a pretty big art gallery.
Yeah. So the art gallery is called Rishon Art, RishonArt.com. If you want to plug it.
How many domain names do you
own? Too many.
It's because it's not so expensive to buy them, but the upkeep is like $12 a year.
Yeah. It adds up. It adds up.
You have over 100?
I don't have over 100, no. But I have some that we're developing. WhyMarryJewish.com I own, which we're doing a link that you could send somebody who's considering intermarriage. Right now there doesn't exist a link, so how do you stop intermarriage?
Right.
So there should be at least some link where you could send them, so we're in the middle of building that. Rishon Art Gallery, it comes from a passion for art. Really, it's sort of a mundane passion. I had a student who came to me when I was a rabbi in UCLA, and he said, I had such a great Shabbos, but I have a question. Is it against Orthodox Judaism to have art? And I said, why would you think that? He said, because you have nothing on your wall. I never saw. So my first thought was, because I have better things to spend my money on. But then I was in a thrift store and I saw a Jewish litho and I framed it. The frame was more expensive than the litho. And I put it up and I said, gee, that looks nice. But then once you have one wall, then you need the other wall. And after all my walls were full, a rabbi came to me and said, if you're going to get art, you may as well get real art. Don't get lithographs because those won't hold their value. Get real art. Better one real painting than 5 prints. So I taught myself art, and eventually I realized that I could support some of my projects by selling art because I really learned about art. And I built this art gallery. It's actually my 3rd art gallery. I owned my first art gallery. It was called the Ben David Art Gallery. I was Benzion, and David was David Newman, and we both went our own separate ways for a bit. I started Shabbat.com, and he started Vaharevna, which is like a major.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know,
I do Kinyan Masachta, which is I think like
it's David Newman.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was our original art gallery. Was the Ben David Art Gallery.
Wow.
So you see, art was never the goal. I even actually was quiet about it for a long time. And then we started another art gallery called the Simcha Art Gallery, but then Shabbat.com was taking up too much time and I didn't have time for the gallery. And then eventually we started the Rishon Art Gallery, which is our biggest one by far. We have almost 6,000 pieces there, and especially museum-type pieces that a person can look at and be inspired by. And some of them are sad. Some of them are happy, but they're not typical. And a lot of them are not the kind of art that people are making today, which is just looks like a few colorful strokes and they sign their name. But like art that will hold its value and is beautiful and tells the story. So we have this art gallery, and it's in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and there's a room there where I give shiurim as well. It's like a boardroom, and we have 3 people who work at the gallery full time, and anyone could come for a coffee and peruse the art, and they can go on the website and they could buy, and it's much less expensive because most of what we do is online, even though you could come into the gallery. It's very beautiful, and we wholesale to other galleries, so this way you can skip going to an expensive gallery. There aren't that many in America anyways, and you can come and put it on your wall and tell a story, and instead of just a floral, which is also nice, but a Kriyas Yamsuf, and it's a statement.
It's fascinating. And before we were talking, you mentioned how you I don't know if it was by your gallery, by your actual home, there's been multiple fires that you've experienced. Yeah. Was that the gallery or?
So it's not the gallery. Our house burned down a little more than a year ago. It burned down in 2006 as well. And, we've tried to figure out spiritually what's going on. And I think Hashem just wants me to keep building bigger. I don't know. I guess so. I mean, after the first fire, when we rebuilt our house, we said, okay, we have to have more guests. That's clearly the message. And we built a very, very, very long dining room. Our dining room table, we had to custom made. The table, without adding any tables, holds 62 people.
Wow.
And that's without adding tables.
I need a picture of this table.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture.
And if you added?
Yeah, then we have over 100.
Wow.
Our biggest Shabbos was over 200 people, and that didn't fit in the dining room. We ended up putting a tent in our backyard, a huge tent.
This is why you live in Monsey. If you were in Flatbush, you could have like 7 guests.
Yeah.
You know?
And the truth is, even after it burned down a second time, and this fire was much worse, this fire, it was all the chesed of Hashem. Even as the house was smoldering, we made a circle in the driveway, and we just sang Tov Lahodos. And someone actually took a video of it because they couldn't believe it, and they posted it online, and it was shared, and it was a Kiddush Hashem, like Lahagib Boker Chasdecha. And of course, what does it take to rebuild a house? It was difficult. This time was harder. The insurance didn't want to pay. They still didn't pay for a lot of the house because they said, "You're a synagogue. You're not you have so many guests, But I feel like Hashem wants us to be where we need to be, and Hashem prepared for us another house temporarily, and that other house has 15 bedrooms because it was a house plus a dentist office, and we rented them both and combined them. So we're still able to have the guests. And when we're all rebuilt, hopefully about Rosh Hashanah time, we're going to resume. And until we're too old to do it, we'll have people and we'll invite them, and we'll make bar mitzvahs, and we have tefillin that we give out and tzitzis that we give out. And a lot of people, their first Shabbos was at our house. And
You're literally building a Bayis Ne'eman.
Yeah. Hopefully, like the third bias should last forever.
Right, exactly. Wow. Okay, so more for the more fun questions.
Sure.
If there's one person in history that you could sit down with for an hour, could be someone who's, from Adam to maybe a grandparent who's no longer with us, who would you sit down with?
So I believe in heroes. I love that question. I always tell my kids you have to have heroes that you look up to. By the way, in the non-Jewish world, there are no heroes. Like who's the hero from the 1700s? They can't tell you, or 1600s. We could say Rash, Barit, Baram. So I have three heroes. My heroes are Avraham Avinu, and David HaMelech, and Rabbi Akiva. Those are my big three, and I relate to the kiruv of Avraham Avinu, to the Achnatz Orchim of Avraham Avinu. I connect very much to that. So I like to learn about Avraham Avinu a lot. David HaMelech, I love his love of Hashem. Like, it's interesting how Breslov has grabbed on to David HaMelech as their person. There was a love that he had even when Avshalom was rebelling against him, and when Shaul wanted him dead, his father-in-law, his love for Hashem was so... He was the voice. He still is the voice of Klal Yisrael, as David HaMelech.
I was thinking, by the way, we'll get to Rabbi Akiva, but when you were talking before about dancing by the Disney theater, I was thinking of David HaMelech dancing in front of the Aron, and it was like, "Are you going to dance like that?" He's like, "Yes, of course I'm going to dance like that. This is for Hashem, for the Torah. This is how we're going to dance."
Exactly. I actually think about that a lot. Mafaza, Morocco,
right? Yeah.
And Michal Vashel says, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
what are you doing?
You're not being sneeze. You're the king.
He says, that's how we have to be. So David HaMelech, very much I connect with, and Rabbi Akiva, of course. It's never too late, never too late. And the whole story of Rabbi Akiva, I tell that story on the trip, and I've actually told it in Beis Yaakov and in different talks that I give. And if you tell it like a story, even though we're so used to hearing it, and we know the story, but if you hear it like a novel, you understand it was a really dramatic event, and it saved Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva was the Masorah at the time when the Romans were wiping out smicha, wiping out scholarship, and we are all Talmidim of the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. So, out of those three.
No, you can have all three. It's fine.
Okay, good.
We won't make you choose.
Thank you.
I think your answer is going to be Hachnas Zorchim, but maybe it's not. Is there a favorite mitzvah that you have? Or loving every Jew is probably...
Yeah. I would say V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, because I think it does incorporate it incorporates everything, and also because it's not easy. We think, it's easy to love Jews, but like I mentioned,
it's easy to love the ones you love, but the ones you don't.
I'll tell you, when I was in yeshiva, I was like 18, 19 years old, and I turned to my uncle who was a mashgiach, and I told him, I see Jewish people in Israel, and they're all my brothers and sisters, and I can even see a kid who's he's growing up Chiloni and I just feel connect like this is like a child of Klal Yisrael. And he looks at me, he says, "Oh, those are the easy ones. Go to Meish Aram, see if you feel love." And I'm like, very interesting, because it's easy to love. It's easy to love unless you feel on the defensive. So sometimes. People who are geschmack, they're fun to be around. It's easy to love, but the nudge who calls and leaves messages and just they feel someone not inappropriate, but like they don't know when to let go. And don't you know, I'm a little bit of a busy person, and pick and choose what you're going to message me about. And then I take a deep breath and I answer the phone. I take a deep breath and I do it many times a day, and I feel like every time I have to overcome my desire to sort of ignore it, and I'm going to answer everyone. And that's why I think that mitzvah speaks to me.
That's really beautiful. So the next question I haven't really asked it much, but I think I want to start incorporating it, and I didn't give you a heads up, and I think it might need it, but I think you have enough experience that you'll be able to answer it on your toes. Is there a favorite story that either happened to you personally, or that maybe you heard that inspired you?
Yeah, there are a lot of stories. The story of the moment. It's not as inspiring as it is. I would say shocking. I was speaking at a Shabbaton, and the students, they looked very inspired. It was non-religious students, but it told me how much work we have to do and how far away we are. Because we had just been speaking about Rabbi Akiva, and I told the story over about Rabbi Akiva and how he married Rachel, and this was, a few young ladies came over to me, and they looked very troubled, and I said, "What's the matter?" Like something about the story troubled them, and I thought, okay, what is it? So they said, we have a question on the story, like it really bothers us. What is it? So they said, what happened to the sheep? I said, which sheep? They said, you said he was like this wonderful, he was kind to the sheep, and Rachel noticed, but then he was fired when he married, so who's going to take care of the sheep? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, does that mean, like, that's what you got out of the story? And then another one said, okay, no, it was an amazing story. So where is he today, Rabbi Akiva? I said, he's died. He died. So they looked shocked. They said, he's dead? So how did he die? I said, he was murdered. They said he was murdered. Who murdered him? I said, the Romans. And I realized we are so far. It is the distance between the chinuch that we are getting, Baruch Hashem, as a Torah community, but those who never had the opportunity, and the very, very basics, it's not inspiring as it is shocking, and we have a tremendous ability to reach out to them, but we're losing them really quickly. I share with you a number?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so Hitler killed between 6 and 8 million Jews. The number is closer to 8 million, the new studies say. How many Jews would there be today if those 6 or 8 million people would have been alive?
A lot more than just that.
Because the children and grandchildren.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was able to figure out the number. It's not a difficult number to figure out. All you got to do is see how many people Schindler saved, and how many offspring does Schindler have today from those who were saved by Schindler's List, and just multiply it. So the number is, you would have today between 48 and 56 million Jews.
Wow.
So he didn't, 56 million if there were 8 million. So he didn't just kill 6 or 8 million. We're missing 56 million.
That's today, and if in 50 years it would be who knows what the number, over 100 million.
Exactly, but there's a secret awful underbelly to this number, which is how many Jews were not killed in the Holocaust? 10 million, which means if 8 million should equal 56 million, then the 10 million should give us around 64 million. We should have 64, 65. We should have, from the ones who were not killed, 65 million. But we're sitting at 14 million. So if we lost that amount that were not killed, they just disappeared. And we're not talking about a long period of time, 78 years. It's not a long period of time. So where will we be in 50 years, and what will we tell our kids? There was something called Project Inspire that really wanted to mobilize Jewish community. I don't know how many people are mobilized today. There are pockets. We're near Far Rockaway. It's an amazing community. Cedars, Far Rockaway, Lawrence, tremendous curve going on. But we've got to be there for those people and also for the kids at risk, so that we don't have to worry about being makar of their kids. We have to give them the love and them the passion.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I really think we could easily spend another hour talking. Is there any other last remarks that you want to say before we completely finish this?
Sure. We want Mashiach to come. That's for sure. So at the end of days, there's going to be a battle. It's brought down. The battle will be between the Malach of Klal Yisrael and the Malach of Yishmael. Not Esav, Yishmael. Mm-hmm. So Yishmael, it's where Islam, where the Arabs come from. And the battle is, who is the true Yoresh, who's the true inheritor of the legacy of Avram? And the Arabs are going to say, we are the ones who really represent Avraham Avinu. And we come close to our version of God through that. And we say, no, we go the extra mile. And the battle looks like this. We say, look, we want to come so close that we daven 3 times a day. So what does Islam say?
They got 5 times
5 times a day. Oh. We eat meat that is shechted, with halal meat. We do bris milah. So do we, and we're older, it's more painful. We believe in tznius. Well, our version of tznius is even more tzniustic. We fast on Yom Kippur.
Whole month.
Ramadan.
Yeah.
On and on. Everything that we say, they have an answer for. And even if what they believe is incorrect, which it is, but it's still, we know that it has currency in Shamayim. Mm-hmm. So what is it going to boil down to, say Chazal? What is the final verdict of who's the Yoresh of Avraham Avinu? Hachnasas Orchim. Who represents inviting guests more? We know the Arabs also invite guests.
Yeah, they do a good job at that.
But not a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I've done my research. They bring you in, but they also kick you out. They have a whole ceremony, 1 cup of coffee, 2, 3, they want you out of here. We've got to excel at Achnasas Archim. And I think sometimes we do, but I think a lot of times we're happy having our son-in-law over, or having just family, and we're not out there really inviting. And we now have this vehicle, this tool to invite. And sometimes, as Klal Yisrael, we give ourselves this amazing credit by how good we are at certain things. We could be better at Achnasas Archim. And I'm telling you this from guests who have told me, even on the site, that they make requests and their requests don't get responded to, or they just get turned down again and again. So my final words are, whether you're on the site years ago and it was not as advanced as it is today, or whether you've never been on it, make a profile. You could. The person doesn't have to be not religious. You can invite a religious kid, or a widow, or a divorcee, or a Baal Tshuva. Every week, it should be your kids say, Tati, Mommy, Abba, Ima, who are we having over for Shabbos? And it should be a given.
Oh, Rabbi, thank you so much for coming out here.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching or listening to that episode. And yeah, if you got any chizuk, any inspiration, any good ideas from this episode, go ahead and share it with your grandmother or friend or your enemy. There's nothing like getting a podcast episode from your enemy, and you might say, hey, enemy, you might get chizuk from this. I don't know. You don't have to send it to your enemy, but send it to someone. And also, if you're watching or listening to this, that means you like podcasts. And I highly recommend you check out the Good Faith Effort. Subscribe to them, rate them 5 stars, and try out a few of their episodes. They're so interesting, unique, and diverse. And Rabbi Ari does a really, really good job. Keep on being inspirational. Living Lchaim.